Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you, man.
You will, bro.
All praises be to Allah. Assalamu alaikum. Let us begin in the most holy name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the All-Wise, True, and Living God, the God who has intervened in the affairs of humanity as it has been shown throughout the Scriptures. We see where God intervened and raised people like Moses and the prophets of old to be beacons of light to the people, especially a people who were being oppressed by an oppressor. We thank God for Moses and the prophets of old and the Old Testament. We thank God for Jesus and the gospel, and certainly we thank God for Prophet Muhammad and the revelation of the Holy Quran. And certainly peace be upon all of these worthy prophets and warners and messengers of God. But living in 2024, about to be 2025 in a few days, we would all be remiss. We would be, that's right, baby, we would be negligent if we did not bear witness and thank God for his intervention in our affairs today, because it would nullify just about all of religion if we say God was doing all these wonderful things way back yonder, but he ain't got no juice today. We in the Nation of Islam are those who recognize that God is on scene and has juice today, so we thank him for his intervention in our affairs in the person of Master Father Muhammad. And he came and raised one who would become the most powerful black man in America. But that's just ancillary information. The man that he raised would become that messenger Messiah that the world had been expecting. That man I'm talking about is the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, the man that they would never teach you about. And not with good reason, but we know the reasons why. Because it is this man who represents the embodiment of the wisdom and power and voice of God. And it is he who bestowed upon his national representative that power, that love, that wisdom, that guidance in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the national representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, it is in their names that I greet you again with the greeting words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language, Assalamu alaikum. I hope and pray that each of you are doing well, that your minds and spirits are good, because we have some stuff we want to talk to you about today, if that's all right. Yes, sir. Now, I don't know if you've been keeping up in the news the last, I say, week or so, but it seems as though America is startled because of some objects that have been flying over her cities, objects that they don't seem to know what it is, mysterious objects that have been intentionally hovering over some of their most sensitive military sites, along with things like President Trump's properties and things that you would think would be protected by America. America is alarmed over these strange objects that are flying over their considered airspace with impunity, meaning that they are doing it with no fear of consequences. You can't punish whatever those objects are. So I think we got a little something to talk about. I thank Allah for giving us some news so that we can start talking about what the Nation of Islam has been telling and proving you about for just a little over 90 years. That's all. It's just 90 something. Before their concerns of UFOs and flying saucers ever took place. And you've been hearing about them saying things like they're drones over New Jersey and over New York and now over Maryland. And there were these objects, UFOs, over D.C. And now I saw reports where they're over San Diego on the West Coast, reminding me of the words of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan from back in the 80s, when he was saying that before you can make mockery of me, of what Allah revealed to me from these wheels, you will see these wheels, or what you call UFOs, over your major cities of America.
Because before you can call me crazy, these wheels will be seen all over America. All over America. They're coming down over the major cities. So you won't be able to say it's swamp gas or little lights and people were drunk. They'll be down over Chicago. They'll be down over New York. You will look up one day and see them, and I don't want you to be terrified. They're your friends, black man.
And when you see them, what are you going to do now? Are you going to direct the people to the source of these objects? Or are you going to continue to cover up and lie to the American people? And if you notice anything about the news and white folks in general, white folks do lie. Y'all forgot? Quick proof. You've been hearing in the news, they're saying there's some mysterious drones hovering over our sensitive airspaces and over our cities, and nobody knows what they are. And then you hear these same officials say that we don't know what they are, where they come from, we don't know their intent or their purposes, yet they're calling them drones like you know what the hell they are. Somebody lying.
That's right.
And you know they're lying because they're doing everything in their power to keep the public away from the source of this phenomena, which is the Nation of Islam. Now, our subject that we want to share with you today, we titled it A Brightly Shining Flame, a subject or title or phrase that comes from the Holy Quran, which we will get into later, and it is discussing how Allah will eventually allow the devils to witness and even almost get a glimpse of a part of his exalted assembly. But after he allows the devils to get a sneak peek of his exalted assembly, Allah promises that they, the devils, will be forever followed by a brightly shining flame. I think what we are seeing, these luminous objects that are having pulsating lights and looking like balls of fire, I think these are clear signs of Allah that we need to be looking at. And I think this is an important subject, not just something we should talk about on a Sunday mosque meeting, but hell, this deals with every facet of human endeavor. And because the Nation of Islam presents a challenge to the world, nobody is afraid, seems like everybody's afraid to talk about it. Because if you get to the root of this object, you're going to have to bear witness that the Nation of Islam has been right and exact the whole time. So the Nation of Islam is presenting a challenge to the world of religion, the world of education and scholarship, the world even of science. Oh, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it clear. He said, Allah raised me up in your midst to do an unbelieving thing that men of science will wonder, how did it happen? How is it that this man with only a third or fourth grade education, who says he was taught directly by God in person, can become the most powerful black man in America, tell the world about these so-called UFOs before the world even had concerns about them, reveal scientific truths before the world of science even had time to bear witness to it, and they don't mention nothing about him. Allah raised them up in your midst to do an unbelieving thing. It's so unbelieving that Negroes, even scholars to this day, refuse to look deeper into the man that became the most powerful black man in America. Oh, we got to look at this. So there's a challenge taking place. It's like an unwritten challenge, an unstated challenge, but the challenge is there. And because this poses a challenge to every aspect of human endeavor, this is arguably the most important topic in all of religion, in all of politics. I know you worried about the immediate things you got going on right now. You worried about how you paying your bills. You worried about your relationships, and these are important things. But these important things that are of immediate impact to you sometimes can blind us away from the overarching most important thing of all. The fact that God is really on scene today, not in a spiritual way, just in my imagination, just in my head or in my heart, but in the real world, to the point where this God that Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan has been telling you about is actually manifesting himself and his power to the real world, where all your political and military leaders around the world are afraid of what Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan have been telling you about. That's not a theory. That's not a belief. So this is the most important topic, the fact that God is on scene today. And he brought proof. And if only we would give our minds and ears and hearts a minute to hear the proof. It ain't like you can disprove it. That's why it's a challenge to the world. Even to your so-called smart scientists. I'm reminded of one of this world's, white folks' most esteemed, famed astronomical scientist and planetary scientist, a man by the name of Carl Sagan. You may have heard that name before. But it was Carl Sagan who said something like this. He said that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. In other words, in the scientific realm of things, if you are to make some very bold, somewhat extraordinary claims, then you got to have some extraordinary evidence to back up those extraordinary claims. Makes sense, right? Yes, sir. We can all, as intelligent people, agree with that. Well, hell, nobody makes a more extraordinary claim than the Nation of Islam, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. These are men who say that God came to America. Sure. In that realm, that's an extraordinary claim to the whole world of religion. Everybody believes in God of some sort, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, all these other faith traditions. So if he says that God came in person and taught him, and he met God, not in a dream, you see, you think that's a bit extraordinary? Okay, so that's perhaps the most extraordinary claim in religion. Shouldn't that require extraordinary evidence? Well, hell, if you are a scientist and you believe Carl Sagan's notion that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, then how the hell can you, as a scientist and a thinker, recognize that the people make the boldest claims in the world, but you scared to even deal with the damn evidence? This is cowardice to the nth degree. Yes, sir. It's what my teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, calls intellectual cowardice. Yes, sir. Where you have people who are supposed to be the foremost thinkers of the world, but you scared to deal with evidence of the most extraordinary claim. We're talking about the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as given to us by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that is already rooted in the prophecies of the Holy Quran. My subject is a brightly shining flame, brothers and sisters. But Allah raised this man up to do an extraordinary thing that make men of science wonder, how in the world did this unarmed black man do what no other leader could do to this day? Oh, they tried their best to minimize him and his accomplishments. That's why they don't teach you about him. Now, they recognize the fact that he became the most powerful black man in America. You can't argue with that. That's not something like a popularity contest, like who I like the most. No, he was the most powerful black man in America because of the position that he did in light of the opposition that he had against him. No leader to this day outside of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan has had and withstood the level of governmental opposition against them as the Nation of Islam has endured. No other group or leader has been through that, what we've been through. Yet we still remain successful in garnering our people and unifying our people independent of white authority. That was the key phrase right there. Independent of white authority. That doesn't mean he was the richest. That doesn't mean he was had the most money, because you got individual Negroes that got more money than the entire Nation of Islam. But they don't have the power because they are limited within the framework of those that give them the damn money. How much money did he have or had? Probably more than all of us combined. But he can't say what somebody like me or you, who are exposed to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, can say without fear of consequences. So who really has the power? Make you think about it, right? So the most powerful black man in America. You claim you love his students, all of whom have impacted the landscape, social, political, even economic landscape of black America and the world. Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, Imam Warathuddin, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, all these people you look up to and we look up to. Even the ancillary groups and things like that, 5%, 5%ers, the Black Panthers, all of them were sparked from the source of the Nation of Islam. So this man is responsible for all of that, but you don't want to lead nobody to the source. The man that told you about the UFO phenomena before you even had one. So Reader's Digest back in 1960, I believe. Reader's Digest, this was back when people used to read. It was this thing. What? No, I have to say that for some of my young people because, you know, we YouTube down and stuff today. And back in the day, people used to actually read, even for entertainment. And Reader's Digest was like one of the main periodicals, especially among white folks, but among Americans, to get a general idea of just what's going on in the world right now. And it was during Reader's Digest where they wrote about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and they said that this mild-looking man is considered the most powerful black man in America, considered by white folks, by white powers. They didn't say he's the most popular because they're not going to popularize the man that they fear. They will popularize other Negroes who are not as threatening. It's the same tactic that they use today. Even when it comes to the UFO phenomena, here we are, the Nation of Islam, we can answer the whole damn phenomena for you. We challenge the scientists and the scholars to come deal with us. You say you don't know what it is, political leaders, Pentagon leaders, and we telling you we know exactly what it is and we will show you, but you don't even want to deal with us. But instead of dealing with us, who can answer this phenomena and take all the mystery away from it, you go and find other people and leaders, even black folks, who will support your theories. So I was looking, and you notice how for the longest time, when it came to the UFO phenomena, they would always direct you to some crackpot-looking white folks. You know what I mean? And they would be the leaders of ufology, of UFO research and whatnot. And now in recent years, you'll find that they'll put some little black faces here and there. But these black faces are not telling you about true history of the Nation of Islam and none of that. They're telling you about some theories that white folks made up. You see these Anunnaki, you know, these are, and the planet of Nibiru is coming here, some damn theories. Make-believe stuff. And this is how the enemy works. It's like they've got juggles and stuff up here, and they got you looking which ball so confused and conflated, you don't know what to look for. That's why they're using this terminology of drones now. You see? Then it went from flying saucers to unidentified flying objects to UAP to unidentified aerial phenomena. And then about a year ago, now UAP stands for unidentified anomalous phenomena. Did you know that? Anomalous meaning a problem. An anomaly is something that's hard, almost impossible to figure out. But the trip part about it is that they'll use any language except the language of the source of the language. But this man became the most powerful black man in America and was able to do what no other leader has been able to do. A man with a 3rd or 4th grade education that says he was taught by God raised an army of dead Negroes out of the mud to become powerful, independent thinking, most disciplined and organized group and movement that you've ever known. I'm talking about the Nation of Islam, the one that posed the deepest threat to white world supremacy. Not for any arms. We don't carry guns. We don't carry knives. We don't do none of that. We just know the truth. But yet we are on the top list of what they call their list of hate groups that they have to monitor and watch and surveil and target for their national security. So if what we're saying about these wheels ain't real, what the hell are you monitoring us for? Sometimes we just need to think, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
I want to continue with the words from the Holy Quran. We still setting the stage, y'all. Look. Allah tells us in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Fussilat, Allah says that we will soon show them our signs. This is Allah talking. We will soon show them our signs in the farthest regions and among their own people, until it is quite clear to them that it is the truth. Is it not enough that thy Lord is a witness over all things?
Yes, sir.
And apparently, that's why Allah asked the question, man, it ain't enough that I'm a witness and I done give you signs and evidence, and hell, what more do you need? See, that's for them and us. Because this truth that we're presenting to the world, our people still have a hard time accepting this plain truth. Hell, it ain't enough that we give you all the damn evidence and signs. What more do you need? I know what it is. See, this is the mind of the so-called African-American Negro. You think in order for these wheels that we've been telling you about to be true is that they got to fly right in front of you, dance for you, give you some signals and messages, and only until then will you believe. To hell with the millions of sightings all over the earth. To hell with the government reports. To hell with the FBI concerns, CIA concerns. To hell with the obvious truth. That ain't good enough for you. You need some old fanciful, hallucinating stuff going on. See, Allah know how we are. That's why I'm like, hell, it ain't enough that I'm a witness for you. Yeah. And you will see these signs in the farthest regions, all over the earth.
Yes, sir.
Ain't nowhere on this planet these wheels hadn't been seen. They pose a problem for every government and military on the planet.
Yes, sir.
The God that came for you, that's his work.
Yes, sir.
But you don't know it because we so stuck on Hollywood.
Yes, sir.
We think you need to come dance for us.
Come on, Janet.
So the Honorable Minister Farrakhan Just made it plain. When it comes to this stuff they talking about, whether they calling it drones, UFOs, and UAP, he said, look. Everything about it says that God is present now in the world. That sums up what this whole phenomena is. Hell, I need to send that to Congress, but look, you want to know what it is? Everything about it is proof that God is now present in the world. Those are his objects. Since you say you don't know the source or intent or the purpose of them, now look how crazy this is, y'all. Imagine a major event takes place to the point where it concerns the courts, it concerns, witnesses and whatnot, and they bring something to court and they're trying to get to the bottom of this thing. But then the most firsthand credible eyewitness says, here I am, subpoena me. Right. I'll come and testify before court. I'll present proof and everything. But the main ones that have all the evidence, you don't even invite them to the court. Right. What the hell would that look like? You want to exclude the most important testimony of all. This is exactly what has been taking place for over 90 years when it comes to the Nation of Islam. And that's why whenever you hear them talk about this stuff, you hear nothing about us, do you? All these concerns of drones, and here you have the most controversial man on the planet based in their eyes, the man they consider the leading world's most dangerous anti-Semite, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan. That's what they say. They call him the most dangerous man in America because of this now. That's what some of these white power leaders have been saying. But you're so concerned about these objects over your skies and sensitive military air bases, but you're not going to consult the man that told you what you would see before you seeing them now. Everything about it says that God is present now in the world. How do you know, dear minister? Because all your prophecies foretell of it. Now, I'm here in Memphis, and this Sunday morning is one of the most sanctified times of the week. Amen. And here's a scripture coming from the Gospels that is rooted in the prophecies of this Son of Man, this destined Son of Man who was already predicted in the Old Testament. This Son of Man, this embodiment of God, this messianic figure who is supposed to arrive not as a son of a spirit, but the son of a what? Amen. So we're not getting spooked out looking for some angelic ethereal being that Hollywood has presented to you. We're expecting a man, a human being, and you should know his gender too. He ain't no confused about I'm a binary, non-binary, this. Hell no. He's a man. Sure enough, man. But the prophecies, even in the New Testament, tell us that then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all of the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Now, you've probably heard your preacher quote that scripture and preach on it. I don't know what context he uses, but I'll be damned. If we're going to look at these scriptures in the real world context, we need to be expecting this godly Son of Man figure to be traveling in the clouds of heaven. And if he's traveling in the clouds of heaven as a man, he's going to need or require or use some type of objects to travel in. Does that make sense? Oh, I'm sorry. Does it make too much sense for religion? These are extraordinary claims. Don't they require extraordinary evidence? Well, if everybody in the world of Christendom is expecting this Son of Man to come and operate in the clouds of heaven, then why is the world disregarding those who have provided the evidence of such?
That's right. Come on. That's right.
Where in the world of Christendom do we find where people talk about a God who came in person, who has and operates from these wheel-shaped craft that everybody calls UFOs?
That's right. Come on.
They mock the Nation of Islam for this, and now they just don't even bring us up at all.
Come on, kid. Come on. Come on, there. Come on.
But ain't that what God said is going to happen?
Yes, sir.
Well, why do we ignore the proof? Hell, even if you don't accept it as proof, don't you think it's important enough, or at least extraordinary enough, that it requires the world and scholars of Christianity to examine the claims the Nation of Islam makes in this regard?
Sir.
Well, what gives? Why not accept the claim? Oh, it's because you're going to have to bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad met Almighty God Allah, who came in the person of Master Father Muhammad. See, that's not something that's limited to anyone's imagination. This is something that now you have to look at real world evidence.
That's right, sir.
The prophecies even in the world of Islam. Our holy prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, there were many prophecies that he shared. And one of those that is known throughout the Muslim world is that the holy prophet, as narrated by his companion Abu Huraira, said he heard the prophet say that Islam began as something strange and will revert to being strange as it began. So give glad tidings to the strangers. See, Islam appeared strange when it arose in Arabia amidst a very idolatrous culture, amidst a very non-scientific thinking culture, where the people looked up to their poets, as you read, Brother Rodney, as opposed to thinkers. So Islam seems strange to a people who don't even try to think critically, especially as it relates to God.
Sir.
So here you have, let's bring it up today, the world of religion. This is the day of, information age. Science and technology is at an all-time high, yet the common masses of the people are dumber. They are not as informed as some of their predecessors. So you are dealing with a people, yet they claim to believe in God in some kind of way. Whether they say they're Muslims, Jews, Christians, Hebrews, you name it. But when it comes to God, it seems almost to be a refusal to think of God in any way that involves practicality, in any way that involves God in the real world that goes against whatever idea you may have of God in your mind. So imagine a man who has been given the divine scientific truth, mathematical theology from God, where God is proving himself in the highest scientific and mathematical terms. That's why we say Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam. Why? Because it can be proven in no limit of time. So you're not dealing with theories and hocus pocus beliefs and even religious interpretations of scriptures. So imagine the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Farrakhan representing a God who wants to prove himself to you, but he's proving himself to a people who don't even think the least bit logically when it comes to God. We have an idea where we expect God to be hocus pocus. And if it's of God, it must be something hocus pocus, miraculous, you know. So we are conditioned to reject reality. And unfortunately, religion has been a major part of that conditioning. So Islam began as something strange. And when it revives or comes back in words, it's going to be strange again. But the prophet kind of told us, but give good news, good tidings to those strangers. We in the Nation of Islam are those who recognize that that stranger, he did arrive. And he gave us this strange type of teaching, this strange type of Islam that's different from all religion, even different from the Islamic traditions that are often followed in the broader Muslim world. Very strange. But is it true? Is it right? You see? So, this man, the founder of the Nation of Islam, the man that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said taught him for almost 3.5 years, 3 years and 4 months. The man who taught him all these secrets. The man that he said was literally God in person. The supreme being. This mysterious man looks almost white in appearance. He comes and he starts teaching, and he declared our independence on July 4th, 1930. Started working in Detroit amongst the poorest of our people in Detroit. Keep in mind now the age, 1930. This is just trying to come out the Jim Crow era. This is during the midst of the Depression. And you know, black people hit the worst of the worst in those times. So he comes to damn near the poorest part of the country and starts teaching these black people who they are. He didn't tell the world who he was. He just said, I'm your brother from the East. And he started teaching our people, our poor people, these things that empowered them and made them into what has now become the Nation of Islam. He teaches them about this wheel. There hadn't been no sightings or nothing at this time. Keep that in mind now. He's telling them about this mother's wheel. 1/2 mile by 1/2 mile man-made ship or craft that houses 1,500 smaller disc-shaped, wheel-shaped crafts that can fly all kind of ways. They are literally his objects and his weapons in fulfillment of the divine prophecies in Bible and Quran about God operating from his heavenly warships. So this man, nothing imaginary, this is straight history now. He comes and he starts teaching our people in Detroit, and he starts a movement unlike anything ever seen before. And it got to the point where this movement that he's a part of, he's behind with this strange teaching, it starts to take notice from the local authorities. And the local authorities are realizing what he's doing among these poor black people and empowering them, making them disciplined soldiers, cleaning them up. These are people on drugs, former prostitutes. Now he made them into an army to the point where he already had thousands of followers in the Detroit and Chicago area before leaving in 1934, 35.
Yes, sir.
So these white folks were alarmed. So when they started writing about him in the early 30s, in the headlines, you'll find they were referring to him as this Islam fakir. They were calling us a cult because we were having these strange teachings that nobody was talking about. Teachings about a mother's wheel, and they thought we were crazy as hell in the 30s. So naturally, they called us a cult. You know? But they are saying, when they were looking into this cult, this is the early Nation of Islam they're talking about, they found that it all led to this mysterious stranger, this man from the East. And they started writing about him in the local newspapers, and referring to him as a fakir. You don't hear that term too much today, do you? You know why white authorities started calling him a fakir? A fakir is derived from fakir, which is a Sufi Muslim ascetic who has taken vows of poverty and worship, renouncing all relations and possessions, like the type of person, they don't rely on all the things of this world. Right. Fakirs are prevalent in the Middle East and South Asia. A fakir is thought to be self-sufficient and possesses only the spiritual need for God. So he's a strange man. Don't nobody know who he is, really. Yes, sir. So white folks just say he is a strange fellow. He's some type of fakir. And one of the reasons they called him that is because he was obviously not reliant on their powers or approval. And he's working among the poorest people in the country and in Detroit, and he's empowering them. That's strange as hell. Looking white almost in appearance. So it's like, this is a strange dude. Now, keep that in mind, because years later, the FBI and the government totally tried to change their narrative of Master Fard Muhammad. In the 30s, they calling him this fakir who's helping black people, taking them off of drugs, cleaning up the prostitutes, making them the most disciplined, self-sustaining type of people. So he's on the scene, and he finds this man who becomes his devout messenger. Yes, this is the one that he chose, Elijah Muhammad. He was known as Elijah Poole at the time, and it was the beautiful, really the most beautiful love story ever told. This strange man was teaching in Detroit, and people were starting to come out by the hundreds and by the thousands. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's wife, our mother Clara, she went and heard this man. She was on fire. Other family members heard this man teaching, and they came back and told Elijah about it. Now Elijah, he was born to do something. And as a child born in Georgia to sharecroppers, the descendants of slaves, his father was a Baptist preacher. And they said he would be a preacher, and he believed he would be a preacher, but not like that. He only had a 3rd or 4th grade education, but he was reading the Bible, and he knew the prophecies. And something was put in him as a child. He was being conditioned growing up on these rural areas of Georgia, seeing lynchings, and then later moving to Detroit during that great migration. Fell on hard times, became almost like a drunkard on welfare. But he still had that in the back of his mind. He knew something was going on. So when he heard his wife and his family members tell him about this mysterious man teaching this stuff in Detroit, something went off. Ooh, I got to go see him. So every time he would go to try to see and hear this man, by the time Elijah got to the meeting, the man was gone. Yes, sir. As if it was building some level of anticipation, some type of yearning in little Elijah. So when the day finally did come, September 22nd, 1931, he laid eyes on that man, this fakir as they called him, teaching these poor black people in Detroit. And it was after the meeting where they gave some type of acceptance. And Elijah Muhammad recognized him immediately. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And when he went to shake his hand, he told him, I know who you are. You are basically God. You're the one that been prophesied to come. And this man, Master Fard Muhammad, he knew exactly who Elijah was. That's right. So he bent over to him and told him, yes, I am him. But who knows that but yourself? Keep that to yourself. Yes, sir. So here this strange man, fulfilling all those prophecies, he comes to Detroit. Now keep in mind, this man, Master Fard Muhammad, he is the source of the UFO phenomena. Yes, right. Those objects, those are his crafts, just so you'll know. I mean, you got to remind us of that now. And eventually, he teaches the Honorable Elijah Muhammad night and day and reveals to him the secrets of God and the universe. Those secrets that now, years and some decades later, have become scientifically verified, historically verified. Truths related to the origin of different people and races. Truths related to the origin of the moon and other planetary sciences. Truths related to these crafts that now they call UFOs and UAP and anomalous drones over their airspace. So in teaching the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, at a certain point, early on his meeting with Master Father Muhammad literally showed Elijah his power. He summoned the mother plane and pointed it out to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Not like, let me tell you about something and giving you a hypothesis. And no. He showed his power by making sure that he summoned it for him. This is what I've been telling you about, Elijah. The mother's will. Huh? All praises due to Allah. Now, of course, keep in mind, this is the early 30s, 31, 32, before there was ever a flying saucer or UFO concern, before any of the reports. You know, remember, they were still calling us a voodoo cult because we teaching this strange stuff. And different things took place now. So the Nation of Islam is on a roll now. Elijah Muhammad said, look, Allah showed me the plane. And then he dared. Elijah Muhammad said this, and he dared the world. Like, look, if you doubt this, then if you find me lying on what I tell you of what Allah showed me, I give you $10,000 out of my brother's vest pocket. That was just the start. Later, he said, hell, I'll give you my life. If you can disprove what this man, Master Father Muhammad, taught me. And we got that on video. Yes, sir. Elijah Muhammad telling the world is, I'll give you my life. Now, the most powerful black man in America telling you these extraordinary claims, but you don't want to deal with none of that. None. They are scared. The people you look up to, your leaders, that's the most important topic in the world. That's right. You saying, well, the economy, that's at the top of the list. Well, if the economy is at the top of the list, and it is, it's up there, where are your taxpayer dollars being used for? Debt. They didn't get your permission. They've been on this thing monitoring and studying with all kind of black budgets and defense programs and defense spending and exopolitical projects to study this with your taxpayer dollars. If you think the economy, well, hell, if you talk to the economists, those who really know, what's important to them is what Allah came to show you. You know, the government that we all, to some degree or another, seem to be a bit afraid of, and their militaries, they're afraid of the God that came for you. Just to get the right perspective. So this movement in the 30s, taking off, the early Nation of Islam, to the point where a lot of things happened. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, per the instructions of Master Father Muhammad, starts a school, independent school, the University of Islam. Takes children out of public school, teaches them, because we don't believe in letting the devil teach our children. The Nation of Islam are the pioneers of independent education. You can thank Elijah Muhammad for that. That's right. Oh, I know. White folk didn't tell you that. So if white folk didn't tell you that, then you think, well, why didn't I hear about this in school? And don't you know, you start looking at our black colleges, historically black colleges, You know why they call them historically black? Because historically, black people went there. I'm dead serious. But who formulated these historically black colleges? White folk were in control of your education. These freedmen schools and whatnot, that's white folks. Mostly from the north. Lemoyne, all of them. These started with white folks' money. And white folks were never going to educate you to the point where you can be independent of them. They educated you enough so that you can fit into their establishment. Not do for self. So when you talk independent education, you better bow down and thank Allah for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. All praise is due to Allah. In the 30s, the Muslims were shaking up things in Detroit because some stuff had taken place too now. Because remember, thousands of people were now following this strange teaching. And some of the people were actually in the Nation of Islam, and some people were on the fringes. Some were sane, some were kind of cuckoo. And there was an incident that took place where, because they had a whole lot of different movements and stuff, you know, vying for people in Detroit. And there was a man by the name of Robert Harris. He was a brother. He was kind of deranged. Well, not kind of, he was deranged. Who literally killed another black man saying it was a human sacrifice in Detroit. And it was during the same time that the Muslims and Master Father Muhammad was around with this strange teachings. So people started to see, oh, do these people have something to do with that? But when they realized Elijah Muhammad and what we were teaching our children in these new independent schools, they got upset and they started trying to crack down, and they raided the early temples of the Nation of Islam. And in the newspapers, they wrote that the superintendent of schools, Frank Cody, expressed himself as alarmed at the possible effects of this weird worship on Negro school children in the city. Now, they call us weird Negro worship because we want to be independent of these weird white folks teaching us. And I should let you see some of the curriculum of some of the textbooks in the 30s. That Black Sambo, 10 Little Niggers, C-Spot, and all that kind of stuff. This black inferiority was and still is inherent in the curriculum that Allah was saving us from. So when white folks saw that, hold up, they have the audacity to take our niggers, children from us, and try to do their own thing. Oh yeah, the police, everybody, they started raiding the temples and raiding the schools. So the superintendent of schools, Frank Cody, expressed himself as alarmed at the possible effects of this weird worship on Negro school children in the city. He said that although he had not been notified of any difficulties which might have been caused by the cult's influence, because the nation was growing, people listening to these teachings, and just like you are realizing, damn, that make a hell of a lot of sense, and they ain't teach me none of this in school. Same thing was taking place in the 30s. And they were concerned of what they call the cult's influence. So he had asked teachers in the colored districts to be on the watch for any irregularities in the classrooms. So these are white folks telling black folks in the public schools, hey, watch out for those Muslims. They're a cult now. So this misinformation campaign has been going on since the 30s. That's why in 2000, almost 2025, even your intelligent African Americans still don't know this basic truth that the Nation of Islam has been teaching for over 90 years. But that's amazing. That's why to this day, even your learned, educated, black, professional people who have some familiarity with the Nation of Islam, even many of them don't make the connection with the UFO phenomena and the Nation of Islam. After we've been on this for 90 years, y'all. And part of it just shows you how effective the enemy's misinformation campaign is. But yeah, they were concerned over the early Muslims. And so after all this stuff was taking place, they traced this movement to the source of the stranger. This strange, they call it mysterious man, Master Fard Muhammad, who was behind teaching and raising these black people out of their ignominy into a level of high stature and civilization in a short period of time in Detroit. So the authorities and the Detroit police and detectives, they actually had arrested Master Fard Muhammad and some other Muslims, and they questioned him. And then some of the other detectives and people were asking some of the other believers about him. And in one of the writings, they were talking about, this is in the 30s, they said, there has grown, however, among the members of the cult, a belief that the prophet was more than a man. See, remember, Master Fard Muhammad, he didn't tell everybody who he was. Right. You literally have God in person, the supreme being. He let Elijah Muhammad know, and he told Elijah Muhammad, shh, don't tell that right now. I'm going to let you teach that, but wait till I'm gone. It's not time yet. And there were a few others who knew. But for the most part, they didn't know who he was. They knew he was special. That's why they called him Prophet W.D. Farad. They even called him the messenger. They called him the savior. But they didn't know who he really, really was. But he did share that not only with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but he shared it with the authorities too when they arrested him. So they wrote that there has grown, however, among the members of the cult, a belief that the prophet, talking about Master Fard Muhammad, was more than a man. They knew he was special. As Brother Yusuf Muhammad claimed, this is one of the early believers when they were asking about him. He said, when the police asked him who he was, he told them, I am the supreme ruler of the universe. He said he told those police more about himself than he would ever tell us. See, that's the way God operates. Sometimes God, he'll reveal himself to his special servant and messenger, but the people don't all know. The people that he comes for, they don't fully know who he is yet. But God also reveals himself to the oppressor. You'll find that pattern all throughout your scriptures. He came and he revealed himself to Moses, right? And through Moses, Moses was to tell the people about this God that was on scene. But that same God, Jehovah, he revealed himself to Pharaoh too. He revealed his power to Pharaoh to let you know, look, I'm on scene now. Even though Pharaoh totally ignored the God, and maybe he didn't see him because he was so blinded. So Master Fard Muhammad is on record for telling the police, the detectives, the psychiatrists, who he was. He told them he was God, the supreme being of the universe. And it's written in record, knowing they couldn't see who he was. But it's on record, and it would become manifest later. So they pretty much castigated the Nation of Islam aside. Y'all just some voodoo cult talking about these wheels. Y'all leader talking about he God. Here's a man told them he's the supreme being. He's God in person. So naturally, while the detectives know that he's a heavily influential man, thousands upon thousands of followers in the Detroit area alone. So they have him go to the psychiatrist to run tests on him. Here's the man that tells them he's God. Now, it was some other people that they had run tests on too. And some of them were crazy, like that dude, no, for real. The dude that did the sacrifice, Robert Harris or whatever, yeah, they were like, oh yeah, he's crazy. But what about this man that says he's a supreme being? They run these tests on him. He's quite sane. And in the reports, in the newspapers, and in the police reports, when they arrested him, they talk about how they were taken aback by his smile. They said that when they went to arrest the fakir from where he was staying, that he had a calm, enigmatic smile. And these people, the detectives and the authorities, were startled by the stranger's smile. Damn. And this same man with this enigmatic smile, who calmly didn't resist the police, they write this in the reports. He didn't resist. Almost like he was expecting them to come get you so y'all can take me down to the office and I can tell you who I am. All praise is due to Allah, who came in the person of Master Prophet Muhammad. Man. So that's on record, but they still like, So he leaves. Nobody knows where he went. He just leaves, and he leaves the Honorable Elijah Muhammad with the keys. Elijah Muhammad ended up having to go through all kind of stuff, but it's on record that he said he was God, and it's also on record that the Nation of Islam were the first and only ones talking about God with some heavenly aircraft made like wheels or circles that fly in the sky. 1,500 of them coming from this mother wheel that's huge, half a mile by half a mile. So now that's on historical record when they investigating this strange group, right? Now they voodoo cult. Then 10 years later, America witnesses these wheels for themselves in what became known as the Battle of Los Angeles. That was an episode where the U.S. Armed Forces, that was probably their first major encounter with the wheels. There was one huge wheel seen somewhere over California and some other smaller wheels that came over Los Angeles. It alerted the U.S. Armed Forces where they scrambled their machinery and fired over 1,400 rounds of anti-aircraft machinery, and I don't think they were called missiles then, at this wheel that was stationed up in the sky. And it didn't do anything. These wheels just basically came and showed off their superiority to let you know that, look, there's a new power in town. Now, this is when America is already on high alert. This is a few months after Pearl Harbor. So America is already on high alert, literally on the West Coast. And then here these wheels come with impunity, showing off. And they fire everything at it, and it can't bring these little wheels down. They boom, 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 boom. They let them fire this. Los Angeles almost in disarray from the shrapnel that fell. And after a few hours of firing at this craft that was stationed up in the clouds, the wheels just danced on off. And while the wheels calmly just went on off, they made the boldest statement that, look, we are clearly far superior than anything you can think of. And that left the government shook. General George Marshall was chief of staff at that time. And he sent a memo to President Roosevelt, and they went on an all-out investigation because the military was shook up. They had clearly witnessed something that they could not compete with. Yes, sir. Enormously superior crafts. So they went on this whole investigation to try to find out if it was a foreign adversary or if it was some other nation or anything, Japan, Germany. But then all of their research reminded them of the only people that was on record for talking about what they witnessed over Los Angeles. And that's why under the directives of President Franklin Roosevelt, they had the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, not some local police. They had the FBI go and arrest the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and in so doing, they arrested him, took him to the FBI office, and guess what they asked him about? Guess what they are questioning him was about? Not a myth, not some hocus pocus stuff. Yes, sir. They asked him about his teaching, all right, particularly what he was teaching and what he knows about these wheels. Yes, sir. That is the beginning of the UFO phenomena on record anyway, government record. But nobody talk about this. See, this is the part that shows you the hypocrisy and blatant ignorance and hypocrisy of the so-called scholars. Now, keep in mind that if you check out the declassified FBI files, the declassified FBI files are the ones that everybody has access to. Your 12-year-old daughter can access some declassified FBI files thanks to the Freedom of Information Act. So in the declassified files that the public does have access to, it shows clearly how the FBI is enormously concerned with Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam's teachings about these wheels. So if that's public record in the government domain and public domain, why do these so-called Pentagon officials and your political leaders, some of whom have access to classified files, mind you, why is it that they never bring up the most fundamental aspect of the UFO phenomena that's already in their declassified files? That's why you know they're lying. That's right. You know they're lying. So that was the beginning of the UFO cover-up. And consequently, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the FBI, locked him up for almost 5 years because they didn't want him teaching this on the street. That was their time to start their misinformation campaign. That was their time to formulate what I call in our book, UFOs and the Nation of Islam, I call it preemptive propaganda. That's a term that I coined, y'all. And this preemptive propaganda, I call it that because they would have the people so conditioned with their propaganda so that when the public actually sees these wheels for themselves, they won't be able to associate these crafts with the origin of the crafts. Right. They will be conditioned to believe it's some damn aliens or anything but what they are. So that preemptive propaganda, has it worked? Yes, sir. Unfortunately, it has. But while they had the Honorable Elijah Muhammad incarcerated, things were still happening. Around 1945, amidst the wars, these pilots from both sides, Germany, Japan, America, and these different theaters of war, these pilots and airplanes would catch these balls or orbs of light, a brightly shining flame in the sky. They called them Foo Fighters. They don't know what they were. America was thinking it was the Japanese thinking it's Germany, Germany thinking it's America, and they're like, what the hell are these orbs or balls of light across the Pacific that we just see hovering over our planes and whatnot? Then all of these things taking place. 1947, you'll notice, is when they try to mark the beginning of the UFO phenomenon. They tried to wipe the Battle of Los Angeles out of history. And the reason is because if you actually research the Battle of Los Angeles, it leads to the Nation of Islam. So when you hear these UFO researchers talk about UFOs, they try to deliberately overlook 1942, the Battle of Los Angeles, and they'll go to Kenneth Arnold and Roswell stuff in 1947. That's a whole 5-year gap. And don't you know, were it not for we in the Nation of Islam, particularly the research team and the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, the public really would not be as acclimated to the Battle of Los Angeles were it not for us. That's real. And even still, if you try to do diligent research and try to look up the Battle of Los Angeles, the enemy has created movies and stuff with the same name. So if you Google it, it may not take you directly to the actual historic events. It might take you to some movie that's about aliens. See, they love, the enemy is the author of confusion. They love trying to get you conflated. That's them juggling balls again. Got you looking over here anywhere but the source. So then, 1947, they credit the beginning of the UFO flying saucer phenomenon to this pilot, this white guy by the name of Kenneth Arnold. Kenneth Arnold was flying his plane over Mount Rainier near Alaska, and he saw some of these disc-shaped objects floating past his plane, about 7 or 9 of them or something. And he reported it, and people started taking it seriously. The government did anyway, so they credit him, Kenneth Arnold, with being the beginning of the UFO flying saucer phenomenon. Right. Not the Nation. Now you tell me, the Nation was teaching these things publicly in the early 1930s. When the Savior came teaching in 1930, he was teaching people about this wheel. Now the wheel actually launched in 1929, but he started publicly teaching about it in 1930. Now I'm not the brightest, smartest person in the room, but can somebody help me out and tell me what's first, 1930 or 1947? 30? Oh, thank you, because you know my math not that good. I'd be having to carry the 1 and the 3 and multiply the thing, yeah. Well, it's interesting that you talk about the UFO phenomena, they focus on 1947. After Kenneth Arnold's things, 1947, that was a whole wave across the country of these sightings. And then whatever happened over Roswell, that's what most people point you to, something that we don't know too much about. But it's supposed to be some type of, they say, and all this is theory now, alien spacecraft crashed over Roswell, New Mexico, and it was recovered by Air Force officials, and they found alien bodies and all of this kind of stuff. All of that is to throw you off. However, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan does tell us that Allah has gifted the enemy with some of his technology to show them how superior he is, that perchance they might do right. Perchance. Now, he didn't give them, you know, he gave them a little something. And by the way, these wheels do not crash, by the way. Just so you know. These wheels, they are highly superior, but it is likely that Allah gifted them with something. That's why that whole Roswell thing is so shrouded in mystery. They have the public thinking it has something to do with aliens and a crash. No, Allah gifts you something. That's why it is his calling card. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan describes these wheels and the wheel as Allah's calling card, and a calling card is basically a way that something that somebody gives you or offers you to let you know how you can contact them. You want to get at me? Give you that. See how you act with that. So white folks were given some of the technology. The devil was given some of the technology. What did they do with the little technology they got? Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they went blowing up stuff, man. Like, damn, man, I'm trying to give you. That lets you know the devil, they didn't use it for energy. No. Let's blow up some people. Yeah. So Allah gifted them with something, and check this out. This is given to us in the Holy Quran. We're talking about a brightly shining flame, brothers and sisters. Let me read from Surah As-Safat. Those ranging in ranks. Interesting title of that surah. Allah says, surely we have adorned the lower heaven with an adornment, the stars. And there is a safeguard against every rebellious devil. They cannot listen to the exalted assembly, and they are reproached from every side, driven off, and for them is a perpetual chastisement, except him who snatches away but once. But then there follows him a brightly shining flame. There's a whole lot in this ayat surah right here. Here you have where Allah is making it clear. Look, as far as these heavens, it's safeguarded. I got this. Devils, you can only do so much in these heavens. You can cut up a food on the earth because I'm going to let you corrupt the earth and the sea with some of your corruption for a certain while. But these heavens up here in space, I got that. And it's safeguarded against every rebellious devil. And that's why you end up getting chastised every time you try to go up there. Stuff blowing up and you might not make it back and all of that. So you're very limited. You try to get to Mars now and you went to the moon and stuff like that. But hell, there's a whole lot of planets and stuff that, you can't even get past the moon or Mars for the most part. Safeguarded against every rebellious devil. But then Allah says, except for him who, and I notice the translators use who snatches away but once. Basically, that means if you read other translations into the English from the Arabic, it's basically saying except the ones who get like a glimpse, a sneak peek of Allah's exalted assembly. So Allah is going to allow the rebellious devils. It uses the Arabic shaitanin. Shaitan is Satan, the devil. But the plural of Satan is shaitanin. I'm going to allow some of these Satans, some of the devils, to get a sneak peek into my technology. But Allah promises them, after I let you do it, you will be forever followed by a brightly shining flame. My wheels are going to be following you. My wheels are going to be hovering over your so-called sensitive and secretive military bases. These wheels are going to be all over, and we know what you're doing because the scientists, who are angels, these are people who operate these crafts, they have the intelligence and capabilities of tuning in, and they can do things remotely with their minds that most people can only fathom of. And it's not magic, it's science, just science that we're not exposed to. That's why they are the scientists or angels. And by the way, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad knew some of them personally. So Allah is making it clear. I got this, but at a certain point, I'm going to allow some of the devils to get a little piece. That's why they were gifted with some of Allah's technology. But after I gift you with this technology, you're going to see these things, these bright, shining flames following you around, and you can't get away. As much as you think you're stealthy and you got underground bases and secret nuclear projects in Alaska and here and there and somewhere over the world, these wheels have been everywhere. And that is what is just now coming into the news in the recent years. And all of these military officials, many of them retired airmen, many of them who worked at nuclear bases in the 60s and 50s and 70s, all over the world, this is what has been taking place in the background that the public hadn't been privy to. But what has been taking place since at least the 40s is these wheels have always been interfering with their most advanced nuclear weapons projects all around the world. When I say interfering, they have been doing things like deliberately shutting down their communication systems just to let you know how superior they are. They have been doing things like dismantling test missiles, the most advanced test missiles. They have been doing things, and this is the reports from all of these officials. Not me, not some conspiracy theorists. These are the reports of legitimate military officials, most of whom are retired, because they're under certain oaths while they are still active. Many of them have been deathbed confessions. All of which bears witness to everything the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been telling you about. But because this wasn't being displayed on the 5 o'clock news, this is what's been going on, like the common thing that's been going on for years, since the 40s at least. And it wasn't until just recent years that some military officials were bold enough to come forth. And that's when you start seeing this thing brought before Congress. Because these Navy pilots, military pilots, were seeing these things, as they said, daily. And they got so frustrated because every time they would try to report to their superiors couldn't answer them, and they wouldn't let them go forth to the public and talk about it. So they got so frustrated that they had to take it to Congress. And that's why it was just maybe 2 years ago that you found where the Congress started holding these hearings for the first time in like 50 years about UFOs. And they still weren't talking about nothing. Because, hell, how the hell you going to have a hearing and don't invite the key eyewitnesses? But that's what's been taking place. So one of the clear examples of Allah showing his power was the famous 1952 UFO incident over Washington, D.C. This is one of those ones that even if you're not deep into UFO research, you may have been familiar with this. It happened, there was some waves of sightings over D.C. in July of 1952, where thousands of residents saw these wheels flying over the Capitol, flying over the White House with impunity. It was so alarming that at this time, General Samford, and I think Truman was president, but General Samford and the military, they scrambled jets, and the jets tried to come and intercept these wheels that were just floating over the U.S. Capitol. And once the jets came, the wheels just darted off. As they call it in military terms, they went dark. Like they disappeared, and now they're unable to be detected. They were detected on radar at first, and it was seen by thousands of residents. Nobody to this day can explain it. And what ticked the American people off even more is that General Samford held a press conference where he tried to explain away what the people saw. He tried to tell the American people that what you saw was some meteorological phenomenon. Right. See, it was something, like with the sky and the starlight and the somebody try to lie, they can't lie. It was horrible. And it was then that the American people like, oh no, y'all trying to hide something. I know what the hell I saw. These are white people now. Right. We know what the hell we saw, dang blasted doohickey darn it. So I'm just assuming that's how they sound, sis, what we saw. But that's just one of many cases where Allah has been showing his superiority. Yes, sir. With these brightly shining flames. And in the Quran, when it talks about how they would be followed by these brightly shining flames, it comes from the Arabic phrase, shihabun thaqibu. The root is shihab, and Thaqib. Shihab has to do with something brightly shining, and Thaqib has to do with something that pierces like through the night sky, like a darting flame. It's talking about these wheels, y'all, if y'all didn't know. See? But it's one thing to just read the scriptures and think it's something hocus pocus, but when you see the reality of what Allah tells you what you will see, now that is a dilemma that, again, the Nation of Islam presents the world with. So we crazy, we the voodoo cult, we don't know what we're talking about. We've been telling you about these wheels with the most clarity, not guessing, with definitive details. And all of the definitive details given to us from Master Fard Muhammad through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as being conveyed by the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, the clearest, most definitive details about the UFO phenomena, but it is also the most ignored.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's right.
See, now those really in power, they know.
That's right.
They know who we are, they know it's the truth, and it's them who make sure that this thing remains covered up. So in the 1950s, especially when they had the Honorable Elijah Muhammad arrested and incarcerated in the 40s, they began a misinformation campaign that really hit the 1950s. And this misinformation campaign that the government, in collusion with the press or the media at that time, this campaign was to misinform the public about both related subjects, UFOs and the Nation of Islam. Part of that ongoing campaign is to never let the public know that the two are directly connected. This is why you can never, as much criticism as the Nation of Islam gets and receives from everybody, you notice that they don't even associate the wheel teaching, the most inherent part of our teaching, for over 90 years, but nobody deals with this most important aspect. They'll make up some stuff. Y'all, some Scientologists. Y'all kill Malcolm. Y'all, y'all don't believe in anything to keep you from the proof that the Nation of Islam is right and exact. But look, this campaign hit real hard in the 50s. So in the 50s is when all the flying saucer UFO movies started coming out. War of the Worlds, and all of them, look at it. They call the 1950s a watershed decade of ufology in movies and in cinema. Because all of these movies came out starting in the 50s, and all of them, for the most part, was to divert attention away from the source. This is when these theories of little green men and aliens popped up. You hear people talk about, these grays with gray big heads and black eyes and skinny bodies and, the alien theory. Now, have you seen any of them folks around? Hold up. Don't you? All these white folks can't be lying. I know some of these grays somewhere. Y'all just not looking hard enough. That's what it is. Because I think I had seen one over in Mapco. He was asking me for some gas money so he can get back to Jupiter. See? Y'all know what y'all talking about. But see, those alien theories, they didn't pop up until the 50s. And don't you know, in our book, UFOs and the Nation of Islam, we trace where white folk even got their theories from. So that little grays with big heads and large black eyes, that came from fictional stories written in the early 1900s by the likes of people like H.G. Wells, the famous author. He wrote fictional stories about how people would look 1,000,000 years from now, and people that live on the moon, and how they would be their bodies would be shrunken and their skins would be gray with large heads and large black eyes. Now, this is in the early 1900s. See, when white folk lie, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They look at, let's see one of these stories fits best. H.G. Wells, what a heck of a guy, I tell you. These flying saucers are some gray aliens with big heads. And what do you say, H.G. Wells? Large black eyes and skinny bodies. So that's what you see on all these little pictures and Roswell, all that stuff. We know it's come from because white folks do lie. So this misinformation campaign, it was to divert and misinform the public of both UFOs and the source of these wheels, which is Master Fard Muhammad. That's right. So in the 1950s, the FBI came out with a hard misinformation campaign. It was probably one of the hardest onslaughts in the media that I've seen, that we of America has seen in recent history. So what they did is that in the late 50s, they came out with an attack. This is an FBI-sponsored attack where they're working with the press at that time. J. Edgar Hoover's the man. So the FBI is going to work to discredit UFO reality, but particularly the source of the UFO reality. So they came out with these lies against Master Fard Muhammad, the source of the Nation of Islam. So all these newspapers came out all of a sudden with stuff like the white man is God for Cult of Islam. And what they did, now remember in the 30s, the newspapers were calling Master Fard Muhammad this fakir because he was helping black people and raising black people, getting them off of drugs, cleaning up the prostitutes, making these people into a formidable army like they had never seen among black America before. So they are really, in a backhanded way, giving him credit in the 30s. But then almost 30 years later, in the late 50s, the FBI produced a narrative that they would make or have their media cohorts to publish. So now this thing came out that Master Fard Muhammad, the ones that the Muslims say is God, was actually a white man from California somewhere, a man named Wallace Dodd Ford. And in the FBI files, they talk about what they would do. They talk about how they work to discredit the Nation of Islam and how they would do it. And this is one place where they said, in connection with efforts to disrupt and curb the growth of the NOI. Oh, wait, hold up. So the FBI is saying, in efforts, these are collective efforts now with media, to disrupt and curb the growth of the Nation of Islam. Just in case you thought the FBI was our friend, their business has always been to stop this. That's right. So how would they do it? They said extensive research has been conducted into various files maintained by this office. Among the files reviewed was that of Wallace Dodd Ford. So all of a sudden, these papers came out saying crazy stuff that the Master Fard Muhammad, we went back into the FBI files or to the files 30 years later, and based on what we think, now the FBI never said this, but this is what they said they were going to push, that Master Fard Muhammad was somehow the same person as Wallace Dodd Ford, a petty criminal, a white man from California somewhere. Now think about this. You're going to say Master Fard Muhammad is a dope peddler and a petty criminal, but he did more than anybody ever did at taking black people off dope. Took us away from crime, like never seen before. You see? So this became the campaign, and this became the narrative that the enemy made up. And even in the FBI files, it was never concluded that this Wallace Dodd Ford is the same as Master Fard Muhammad, but hey, that's what we're going to run with. So even when you look at today, the so-called scholars and so-called experts on the Nation of Islam, these people still try to associate Master Fard Muhammad with Wallace Dodd Ford. They are not following the truth. They are following the FBI narrative to discredit the nation. And these are the so-called people that they prop up. Remember the black folks they prop up? Because they won't come to us. Oh, I read Claude Klieg's book about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I read Carl Evans' book about the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And they rely almost solely on FBI files for not only their sources, but they also rely heavily on the FBI's opinions and interpretations. They are following the narrative, and now they become experts. So even in the world of academia and college, if you try to learn about the Nation of Islam, you got to go through them, not us. But this is important because we're talking about the God now, and the God of those wheels, and it has to be cleared up. Because you find people still following the FBI script, the narrative to this day. And they think they know something. All of that is to keep the public from knowing the truth about the man behind these wheels that's flying over your military bases. But you know, the Nation of Islam responded. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, so in the late 50s and throughout the early 60s, the press was pushing these narratives in their newspapers. And by the way, they were even saying stuff like Master Fard Muhammad was working for Hitler. Now, you can't see it, but on this headline, it says, white man is God for cult of Islam, revealed Eli Muhammad's, they didn't even get his name right, Eli Muhammad's Allah is Turkish ex-agent for Hitler. You see how desperate they are? Yes, sir. But look at what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did in 1963. When they were putting all this stuff out, I think it was the Hearst, another popular newspaper, saying that Master Fard Muhammad was Wallace Dodd Ford, a petty criminal and burglar. Remember, all of this is to curb the growth and deter the growth of the Nation of Islam. People like you, some of you, you see, you're interested in the nation, you know that what we're saying is good and whatnot, but you have little uncertainties. Now they're going to play on your spirit. Oh, don't go down there. The man that they say is God in person, oh, he was some petty criminal. He was a dope peddler. He served time in San Quentin. You see? But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, okay, y'all talking this stuff. I'm the one that met him and was taught by him, and I'm his representative. And y'all know good and well because the FBI was still looking for him during this time, Master Fard Muhammad. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad challenged the world, the newspapers, the government, and the world. If anybody can prove that that man you call Wallace Dodd Ford is the man that taught me, Master Fard Muhammad, I will give you $100,000. Let's debate publicly, and I'll give you $100,000. They did not respond, certainly not publicly anyway. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad literally sent some of his students, Brother Jabril, who was Bernard Kushmir, Brother John Shabazz, who later was known as Abdullah, and another brother. I think it was 3 of them. He sent them to the Hearst that published some of those headlines that was hitting national news and gave them the check, calling them out. Since they know you wouldn't do it, see, the devil ain't going to come out. But yes, I'll debate you. Hell no. The devil he's a liar. He is hide behind his lies. And he hide behind his power to put out stuff in the papers and on TV and on YouTube, and will try to censor you when you rebut his crap. Right. So Elijah Muhammad sent his representatives to the newspaper place with the check. Which one of y'all saying that Master Fard Muhammad is Wallace Dodd Ford? We got a check right here. Who gonna respond to this? Do you think they responded? So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad put it on the front page of Muhammad Speaks to let the world know we give you $100,000 if you can even kind of prove the charge. Like, I know his shoe size. I know what size suit he wears. I know how tall he is. Can he speak these languages? See? Even in the FBI narratives and in the misinformation campaign, to this day, you will find almost dozens of conflicting lies and narratives about the origin of Master Fard Muhammad. If you look at people like Dr. Morrow's book, Andrew Morrow, this white guy who's supposed to be another expert on the Nation of Islam, he, in his research on Master Fard Muhammad, he realized that just in the FBI and some of the other files that they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and at least 9 different theories, all of which are conflicting with one another. The white theory, no, he's from New Zealand. He's from Saudi Arabia. No, he's from Persia. No, we think he's Turkish. Remember, he's an ex-agent for Hitler. No, we think he's Syrian. No, he's more than likely Indo-Pakistani. No, he's from Afghan. No, he's a Greek. No, he's a white boy from Portland, Oregon. Look, the white man does not care which lie you believe as long as you don't believe the truth. So all these conflicting lies, and that's why they can never stick to their stuff, because they'll do everything to ignore the God who is sending these brightly shining flames. This is one of many, I'm talking about hundreds of cases of military incidents over the years. This is Dr. Bob Jacobs, who was a lieutenant. He's giving a report about what happened in 1964. And now this is a recreation of what he saw. A recreation, they would do these test missiles. They call them ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. One of which was just done a few weeks ago, I think over, Russia. So these are some very powerful missiles, but they are doing test operations out over somewhere in a remote area. And so they would send these test missiles up, and they would have them being recorded on like 35 millimeter film and things like that, and they would examine the recording. And while they were doing that, they noticed that something happened to one of the test missiles. And so when they came back to review the film, Bob Jacobs, who was a lieutenant at that time, was looking at the film, and they saw where one of these wheels came midair and literally dismantled the test missile, the warhead, in midair in a matter of seconds. Now again, that's a recreation. Now that's like a recreation of what they did, because he said there's some people he thinks they were from the CIA, he doesn't know. They came in and confiscated the military film. But look, those type of cases has become the norm in the background all of these years. This is because we have a real God on scene today, and you need to know that he is here. So we're going to conclude this subject, followed by a brightly shining flame with words from the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And this just gives us an idea of what all is taking place right now. He says, today we see the white race preparing for the sky battle to determine who shall remain and rule this earth, black or white. All of this stuff that you see, all of these government, whether it's the CIA, which was formed in 1947 in the aftermath of these waves of UFO sightings, whether it's the Reagan's SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative, that he tried to reenact or tried to get started, that they call it Star Wars, whether it's NASA Space Fence, whether it's Space Force, whether it's all of these different departments, the main thing that's at the top of their list, that's why I said it's really the most important topic in the world, is the wills and the power of the God that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Farrakhan are trying to present to you. So the question is, are you going to continue? When I say you, I'm talking about the people, period. Are we going to continue to try to act like this truth is not here? Or are we going to be bold and wise enough to go ahead and bear witness? There is no God but Allah who came in the person of Master Father Muhammad. Thank y'all, family. That's my time. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum. All praise is due to Allah. Thank you for your patience, family. I do want to let you know that we do have some resources available. You can go to our website at nationbrothers.com where we have our book, UFOs and the Nation of Islam. We have our documentary series, Answered, both the prelude and the part 2, the coming of God. And we are working on part 3, the highly anticipated part 3, which we intend to release right after Savior's Day. So stay tuned. Oh, yeah. Look, that one's going to be more impactful than the first 2. So, yeah, just keep your eyes and ears open. And as we prepare for Savior's Day, for those who don't know, Savior's Day, that's our national holiday. That's kind of like our Christmas, if you will. You know, and it's that time of year where we are raising money. We put money in our national treasury, and this is what allows the Honorable Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam to move the way we move and be the most independent and remain the most powerful entity and remain such a threat to white powers and authority. So we encourage you to give and donate to the Savior's Day gift using your nation's program. Don't spend too much money on them Christmas gifts and get caught up in the Christmas spirit. Look, they didn't even want to bear witness to that. Look, I saw some brothers that were like, we have to help the brothers sometime. I told you, Brother Rodney, this time of year, I done seen some the big Muslim brothers break down over some of them Christmas songs, boy. You hear the Temptations? And what's Dennis' part? In my mind. Oh, shit, man. Merry Christmas. Suit and bow tie on, everything. But no, man. So make sure y'all save your money and don't do that, whether it's the Temptations or the Dunny. I know the Dunny Hathaway, they get y'all every time. So, but let's have Savior's Day in mind, Sister Cynthia. Is that all right? Hey, I hit that Temptations note. Do you see that? Ooh, boy. I think that'll do it, brothers and sisters, man. Let's enjoy our day. Let's enjoy the time, being watchful, but also being mindful that Allah is God and there is no God but He. With that being said, family, and if there are no further announcements, I think we can close out in prayer. Let us all stand.